Good morning, everyone. I'm Alexander. So today I would like to present about relation between MongoDB from Sitecore 8 update 2 into 9 update 2. I understand that yesterday there were many great presentation about a new version of Sitecore 9, and I hope that this presentation will not be outdated for you guys. Because I also find some good information that not many people know, like those important points, like the difference between Sitecore 8.2 and Sitecore 9. So about me, I work at the Sitecore Product Services and Support team in, I'm based in Malaysia. So my daily work is to work with our customer and partner. So let's say when they find something unexpected from Sitecore, then they will raise a ticket to us, and we handle that, and we try to help them to achieve their business objective. So the main topics here is here is the main topics, like the history and how the MongoDB is used in 8.2 and Sitecore 9 without MongoDB, and Sitecore 9 with MongoDB. The history about this is like we used to use MongoDB starting from Sitecore 7.5, where the scaling is needed for Sitecore. And in Sitecore 9 initial release, we started to use SQL Server, and we do not use MongoDB anymore, because the new version of SQL Server is able to support that scaling like what MongoDB provided. But then in Sitecore 9 update 2, again, many people demand back to use MongoDB again. That's why in Sitecore 9 update 2, we bring back MongoDB again. When I first come up with this presentation, my initial intention was to actually show you all the architecture comparison between the XDB in 8.2 and Sitecore 9 without MongoDB and Sitecore 9 with MongoDB. However, as I investigated further and I also collaborated more with our Sitecore software architect, I find that this topic can actually grow to be a very large topic, because the XDB in Sitecore 9 is actually built from scratch. So we can't actually try to use the comparison like between one table to another table in XDB. But I will try to also explain the important part here, even though 100% mapping is not really possible for now, but I will try to point out what is the important point, especially when I work in the support tickets. I found some common issues, and that not many people know, but I think this is important for us to know. So actually, MongoDB is used in Sitecore for two purposes. One is for the XDB collection, and another for the session state provider if we customize it to be out-prop mode. But this presentation of mine will only focus on the XDB part. And here is my agenda. I would start with to show you what kind of database collection database we have in 8.2, and you might notice that there are many XConnect here, because XConnect is something between Sitecore and the XDB in Sitecore 9. But I will also try not to go in too deep into XConnect, because my main focus of this slide is just to show you the overview of how XConnect actually helps in the XDB. And here I also put some basic architecture, because I think this is what is important. Instead of explaining the database architecture comparison, it is better to explain how XConnect actually works, what roles are inside the XConnect, and the application related to it. And for my simple purpose, I will just use the XP0 deployment. And I also would like to explain about the migrating XDB. There is some important point here because, as I said previously, it is not like 100% mapping. So there may be some small difference in the Sitecore 9. And then I would like to also explain that tracking and XConnect model because Sitecore still maintain the old analytics tracker. And few benefits from XConnect and XDB in 9.02 and all the difference. So basically, when we see our connection string for 8.2, here are the MongoDB database. We have analytics, tracking.live, tracking.history, and tracking.contact. And if we access the website of MongoDB, actually this is the definition of MongoDB, which is the main data platform for Sitecore XDB, which is to collect all the customer interaction from all channels and to come up with our reporting. But actually, this definition only applies for 8.2 because after that, it is no longer the main data platform as we have many options such as SQL in Sitecore 9. Yeah, actually, when I first contacted our software architect from Sitecore, this is my first question to him, like, what are all the replacement for this 8.2 into Sitecore 9, such as all the database from this connection string. However, he responded to me, it is actually impossible for us to show you one by one for everything in the table, in the database and the related tables from then. In 8.2, actually all the marketing definition data, such as goals, campaigns, page events, engagement plans, and outcomes, they are stored in MasterDB. And our collection database will actually only stores the ID of the marketing entities. And I also will try to explain the quick overview of these 4 tables. So in analytics, in my support experience, most of the time when customer reported problem like why the data is not appearing in their report, the important table from this analytics, in my opinion, is actually contacts and interactions as we work with them mostly. But it also actually has those tables. If we expand it from the MongoDB client, we can actually see like automation ranges, states, contacts, like devices, geo-IPs. And about the tracking.live, this database is actually used by 2 entities, task storage and live processing pool. We have these 2. Let's say for task storage, the structure is a little bit complex, but I will just explain the high-level overview. In our task storage structure, this is actually used by task queue, which is used by task manager, which is used by task agent. And this task agent is actually configurable in our config setting. And how it works is actually the tasks are added into this task queue when we remove contacts. For example, when we remove contacts from automation states, setting timeout date of automation state, updating classifications of location, etc. Even we can also use custom code to execute tasks during certain time. And for the live processing pool here, we have 2 tables here, like tracking.live and tracking.history. The difference is that for the live here, we, let's say whenever session is submitted to database, in Sitecore 8.2, we have actually a processor called processing pool add in the pipeline submit session context. So every time the session is submitted to the database, we will actually add that data. We call it as a work item into the live processing pool. And the pipeline that runs this, that executes this live processing pool is analytics.aggregation/interaction. So the difference with the tracking.history here, actually for history, it is more to the work item is added when we rebuild the history DB. And for the last one, like the tracking.contact, this is used by our context processing pool that contains update. For example, when we created, modified a contact, or the contact is obsolete, we also create that unit item and we put that into the contact processing pool. And the difference between these three tables for tracking.contact, actually it requires the pipeline called analytics.aggregation/contacts. And now we check the connection string. When we see in Sitecore 9, suddenly we can see a lot of connection string here. But I will not go into one by one to explain all the tables and the database here, but I will explain the roles, which is more important, and how its role works with the XDB. Also, I also put another connection string for XConnect here, because basically XConnect, as I said just now, is something between the XP and our XDB. And we need to use the XConnect client API to make the interaction between them two. I also contacted the software architect and to know what is actually the reason why we want XConnect in the first place. The reasons, such as the architecture of XDB in the previous version, actually had several issues, such as too many direct connections, and the code had to access or hit Mongo directly. Like we did not have the abstraction for the data provider in 8.2, and it also hit the analytics index directly. And last time there were no unified API for working with contact data. And also from our customers' point of view, some of them don't actually like to work with MongoDB. Also, a few examples I can give from my support experience is that XConnect has made some impacts to another application. One important, the one quite common issues is when we move data of list manager from one instance to another instance. I have listed some problem here, like sometimes our contact list item is shown in content editor, but the list manager does not display it. And sometimes the list manager displays the contacts, but the number of the recipients in the contact list is 0. And sometimes even we can see the contact in the list manager. When we click on that, there is actually no contact inside the contact list manager. So how this actually affects that list manager? I found out that in Sitecore 9, we have an index called Sitecore underscore marketing definitions underscore master. So we need to have that DB, that index for the first solution, which is when the contact list item is shown in content editor, but the list manager does not display it. So we need to re-index this particular index. And for the second issue, where the list manager displays the contacts, but the number of recipient of the contact is 0, the relation to this DB, to this connection string is that the value of this solar core here need to actually connect to the correct XDB. So if we did not connect to the correct XDB, the number of the recipient is actually shown as 0 when we click on the list manager application. And for the third problem, like there is no contact inside the contact list, even though it is shown in the list manager, which means after we click inside, there is no contact, even though we believe there's supposed to be a contact inside. That actually links to the collection is also in this XConnect setting that we need to use the correct shard map manager, like our sharding, like shard0 and shard1, like that. And because list manager is also used by our EXM, actually, let's say before we send a message, we can select a contact, and sometimes we can see like the recipient list. And how it actually generates the recipient list, because sometimes the one that we see on the left and the right are different. So both of them actually will require a segmentation engine, which is also a new thing in Sitecore 9. But the difference is that based on my working experience, the right side, which is the message info controller, when we open that EXM, they will have more filter that sometimes the value in the left is bigger than the value on the right, which is the message info controller. And third applications that I could think of right now is like marketing automation, which is a new thing in Sitecore 9, but not in Sitecore 8. If any one of you has actually visited the documentation of how to enroll a contact into marketing automation, we can actually create our contact, but we still need to dive in. Like for myself, I need to open the the SQL Management Studio to find what is the XConnect contact ID before I can put that ID into the method to enroll the marketing automation. So this is like a bigger architecture in Sitecore 9, which makes it hard for us to actually do a 100% mapping from Sitecore 8.2 to Sitecore 9. And here is the XConnect model. We have three main features, the strength of it, which is strongly typed, extensible, and segmented. Strongly typed here, actually, because if we check with a decompiler, actually, XConnect has its own code. So when customer want to extend it, which is the second feature here, extensible, customer can actually write their new model, and the advantage of this strongly typed is actually compile time safety, such as when you want to click something, then it will prevent you from writing a wrong class or a typo of the real class name.
A big round of applause once again to the speaker.